Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lead at Any Level Live. This is Amy C. Waninger, the founder and CEO of Lead at Any Level, and I'm here with you every Monday at noon Eastern on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube with tips, essential tips for inclusive leaders. Today, I want to share with you 7 essential skills for inclusive leaders. And the reason I think these skills are so important is because they are often the ones that get overlooked. We don't learn about them in college. We don't learn about them in our technical training. They're things that are sort of under the surface that great leaders do, but there isn't usually a lot of formal training around how to do them effectively. And so I want to tell you just really quickly, I'm going to go through these 7 skills. I'm going to tell you how you can learn more at the end. But first, before I get there, I want to welcome you all and I want to ask you in the chat, where did you learn to be an effective leader? Who did you learn from? Did you take a course? Did you read a book? Did you have a mentor? Did you just watch somebody that you admired? Where did you learn to be an effective leader? That's my question for you today. Please tell me in the chat. Okay, now let me get started with what I feel like are 7 essential skills for inclusive leaders. Number 1 is to understand why inclusive leadership matters. This is important because every leader that I've met that's effective in their role is not only ties what they're doing to their own personal mission, vision, and values, they also tie what they're doing in their leadership role for their teams. Everything that they ask their teams to do, they tie to the company's mission, vision, and values. They give people a sense of purpose in a world that seems out of control. They give them a true north, if you will, for why the work needs to be done or why it needs to be done in a certain way. Now, inclusive leadership is no different. It's important for leaders to understand why inclusive leadership is the best way to lead for whatever it is that they want to accomplish. So if you are a leader, spend some time thinking about how inclusive leadership could help further all of the goals that you have, how it can contribute to the mission and vision of your organization, how it can contribute to your strategic priorities. Because really anything that you want to get done as a leader, you need to do through other people. And those other people will not be carbon copies of you. They will all be different. They will have different perspectives, different ideas, different backgrounds, different identities, different levels of education and, different professional paths. And so you need to be able to be a leader that can speak to all of those people and get all of them motivated and on board. So that's number 1. Number 2 is navigate change effectively. Now, there are a ton of resources out there, and there are a ton of companies that will help you manage change from the top down, right? We start at the top and we have all of the different steps that we go through to create awareness and desire and, knowledge, ability, and then to reinforce. And those are all very important. But really, when we get down to it, even without all of those structures in place to manage change, change is coming at us every day. So the very first thing we need to do as leaders is get really good at navigating change for ourselves, so then we can help our our team members through the process of navigating change as well. But a lot of us struggle with, how do we respond quickly in times of change, especially when those changes feel personal to us or we feel like we're going to lose something in the process. That can make it really difficult. But there are some really easy strategies to use to help us get through changes. I actually teach a course called Moving from Panic to Purpose that's on this exact topic. Third is build a robust and diverse professional network. Now, if you've listened to anything I've ever said, if you've read anything I've ever written, if you followed me for any time at all, you know that this is just a critical component for inclusive leadership, because when we change who we see as our in group, we change how we see the world. We change what affects us, what bothers us, what excites us, what motivates us. And when we can expand our circle to be more inclusive, it really does change our own perspectives. It also helps us make better decisions for more people more of the time, which is usually the kind of leaders that we want to follow and also the kind of leaders that we want to be. Not surprisingly, I have a whole program called Network Beyond Bias that touches on all of these topics. But there are so many ways that you can expand your network right here, on social media or, in your office or, just in your personal life. The next piece is to focus on strengths. One of the things that I struggled with as a manager and as an employee, frankly, is I felt like I was always hired for my strengths, right? You go into an interview and people say, "Well, what is it that you bring that nobody else brings?" And I'm pretty good at articulating that, right? I'm a systems thinker and I'm a creative problem solver, and I pull my ideas from a lot of different places and fuse them into something new, and I can create something from nothing and make it better than it ever was before, right? That's what I'm really good at. But then I'd get on the job and I'd hear, well, um, at review time, yeah, you're good at all that stuff, but we also need you to be good at these five other things that are important to your job. And while, yes, I can agree that those are important to my job, they're not my unique skill set. They're not what makes me special and uniquely able to do what I do so well. And so, maybe it's, that I lack attention to detail and execution. Well, that's what I have a team of people for. Or maybe it's, that I get a little too impassioned about my work and I need to be more objective. That's not my strength. So take me off the project once I get too impassioned, right? Move me on to something else that I'm allowed to be excited about. Because if I'm not allowed to be excited about it, I'm not going to do it well. So there are all these things, right, that you get judged for not being when you get to your annual review that have nothing to do with why you were hired in the first place. And if we can create teams, first focus on our own strengths and know that we're really good at what we're good at, understanding how we see the world, how we react to it, how we respond in the moment, right? But then also recognizing that each of our team members will do that a little bit differently. And how do we take what's great about them, what's excellent about them, what they do best, and what motivates them and feeds their souls, so that we can really create a team where everybody's doing their best work and moving the whole team forward. I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach, and I love doing the training around the Gallup Strengths Finder or Clifton Strengths assessments and body of work. I think it's so important for us to understand that people really are different, and different things excite us and different things motivate us. And while each individual should be able to focus on what they do best, we need well rounded teams so that all the work can get done. Number 5 is give and receive feedback effectively. I talked about this a little bit last week when I talked about don't ask people what they think if you don't want to hear what they think, or don't ask people what they think if you're just going to tell them they're wrong. And it's so important as leaders, number one, that we give good quality feedback. That doesn't always mean positive feedback. Sometimes it means constructive feedback, but good quality feedback to everybody on our team consistently and continually. And this is important because if let's say you had 5 potted plants in your office and you only watered one of them regularly, you would only see one of them grow and thrive, and it would be the one that you watered. Well, our teams are the same way. If we only invest in 1 or 2 people on the team, only 1 or 2 people on the team will thrive. And there's evidence to show that we're typically most likely to invest in the people who look the most like us or who remind us the most of ourselves. So we need to be very cognizant and conscious and intentional about how we distribute feedback among our teams. But it's also important to ask for feedback regularly and to be responsive to the feedback that we get, whether it's positive or negative. Or I'm sorry, positive or constructive. Sometimes it feels negative when we're getting it, but that's not always the case. A lot of times people really do want to help us be better, but we have to be careful about creating the space for them to tell us what we need to hear to do that. And then next is number 6 is pick the best person for the job. Now, a lot of managers go through hiring training in their companies, right? They go through some sort of probably compliance-based training about things that you can and cannot say in the interview process. Really good companies that are very astute at this will train their managers on how to read resumes and how to interview, or they'll use recruiters for the selection process. In addition, or they'll have a lot of tools in place for this. But a lot of people who are involved in the selection process for a new hire are not managers. They're technical people. They're people who are de facto leaders on the team. They're high performing individuals in other departments who have never gone through all of that management training. And so if you want to get the best person for the job, you need to train everybody down to the the receptionist or the security guard at the front of your building on how to be involved in the selection process. So you're putting your best foot forward with candidates and you're getting the best candidate into and through the process. So picking the best person for the job may seem like an obvious one if you know how to ask the right questions in an interview, but there's so much more to hiring than that. And again, not just hiring managers are involved in the process. So we really need to make sure that leaders, even if they don't have a leadership title, they don't have management responsibilities, anybody who's involved in the candidate selection process needs to have really good training around how to get the right person, not the most obvious person for the job. Okay. And then finally, we need to learn how to develop a learning culture. Now, you may have heard of Growth Mindset. I believe that was a book by Carol Dweck called Growth Mindset. Growth Mindset is super important to anybody who is ambitious, who wants to get ahead in their careers, right? Growth Mindset tells us that we don't have those skills yet, but we can develop them. Growth Mindset tells us that experts are still learning, right? And we can be an expert and still be learning at the same time. But it's important for us not to stop with our own growth mindset. It's important that we also create that growth mindset and cultivate it among our teams by creating a learning culture. A learning culture is one where people are not afraid to ask questions. They're not afraid to share knowledge. They're not afraid to take risks and learn from their mistakes. Learning cultures are ones in which everyone is invested in everyone's development and everyone sees what's great about each other so that they can all lift each other up. Learning cultures win. Learning teams win. These are the teams in the organization where people are plucked out of to get promoted. They are the teams that other people apply to because they want to see what's going on. They want to be part of the magic that's happening. And in a learning culture, in a team or an organization, all things are possible. You're going to outcompete your other departments. You're going to outcompete your competitors outside your company. You're going to attract new business. Learning cultures are really magical in that way. Now, I'm going to take the banner down for just a second. I want to run through these again. If you're coming in late, I'm talking about the 7 essential skills that inclusive leaders need. And I'm going to share with you something very exciting at the end. So stay tuned. But let me run through these again. Number 1 is to understand why inclusive leadership matters, tying this back to what you're trying to accomplish as a leader for yourself and for your organization. Number 2 is to navigate change effectively so that you can then lead others through change. Number 3 is to build a robust and diverse professional network. Number 4 is to focus on strengths, your own and those of your team members. So everybody's doing their best work, so the most work gets done. Number 5 is to give and receive feedback effectively. 2 sides to that coin, both constructive and positive feedback. And number 6 is pick the best person for the job, whether you're staffing something internally and you want to do a strengths-based assignment, or whether you're bringing someone in from the outside to do work for you. You want to get the best person for the job, not the person that you most want to have a beer with, the best person for the job. And finally, develop a learning culture. A learning culture is one where everyone is incentivized to ask questions, to share knowledge, to take risks, and to learn from mistakes and setbacks. So those are the 7 keys, I think, to being an inclusive leader. Those are the skills that you need. If your organization is struggling to develop inclusive leaders, if you've invested in things in the past that haven't worked, probably online training, where people are expected to just kind of click through the training and maybe not absorb as much, right? The incentivize is clicking through, but they're working on other things. They're multitasking during it. If your organization is growing and your ability to train leaders is outpacing your need to train leaders, I want to extend to you a special offer. I am working on a new program. I've delivered components of this in the past. I've never packaged it up and delivered it in this way, but I think it's going to be really powerful. And it's a program called Essential Skills for Inclusive Leaders. It's 8 modules. They can be delivered by via Zoom or in person. Basically, it's a year of programming. I give you everything you need to develop your leaders from start to finish throughout the year, covering all 7 of those topics that I just mentioned. And then we do a graduation ceremony at the end with certificates. There are some other options that we can do to customize things for you to make sure that we meet your needs, whether you need, coaching for leaders or, some additional focus on a particular program, right? We can expand those out. We can contract them. We can do some remote, some on site, some hybrid. There are a lot of different options that we can do. If that's something that's of interest to you, if you know that you've fallen down on leadership development during the pandemic, or you know that it's past time to make an investment in your high potential employees or your emerging and aspiring leaders, please give me a chance to help. You cannot do this alone. There is just too much going on in your business to do this by yourself. To create a program like this could take years, and I've got it ready to go. So if this is something that you're interested in looking into for 2023, I am offering some incentives for those who sign a contract before November 15th of this year. Now, I know that seems like a long time off, but we're going into budget season, so we need to have a conversation now so that you're ready before November 15th to sign the contract, ink the deal, get your date set for next year. I anticipate that these are going to go fast. I can only do so many of them because I only have so much capacity on my side right now, but I'm thinking probably 4 to 5 companies can take advantage of this, and we can have 4 to 5 companies that are dominating in their space because they're able to keep their employees and keep them engaged. They're able to build a good, solid leadership bench. They are able to develop leaders in a way that keeps the leaders and that sets them up to outpace their competition. So if that's you, if you've got a couple dozen leaders in your company and you know that they need some good training, I would love it if you would reach out to me. You can book time right on my calendar at, there it is, work with lead at any level, workwithlaal.com. That's me. That gets you on my calendar, and we'll talk about what you're looking for your training for your leaders in 2023, and how we can help give them the 7 essential skills they need to be inclusive leaders. Thank you all so much. I will see you back here next Monday at noon Eastern. Also, you'll want to catch me this Thursday at noon Eastern for the Including You podcast. My guest this Thursday will be Dr. Val Torres. The topic is coalition building. Dr. Torres is the founder of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Pinellas County in Florida, and he has created an impressive coalition down there of, I say down because I'm in Indiana, but in Florida, in Pinellas County, of community leaders, business leaders, higher education, social sector, all with this notion of building a true business class, right? And a world-class business community in Pinellas County, Florida. You won't want to miss this. When I talk about networking, Dr. Torres is exactly the kind of example that you want to follow. So I'll see you Thursday at noon Eastern for that. And I'll see you next Monday, noon Eastern, with more essential tips for inclusive